Welcome back to another episode on the Aaron Doughty podcast. My name is Aaron Doughty, and I'm going to be sharing with you things that took me, I'm going to share with you things that took me 8 years to learn when it comes to manifestation, creating my dream reality, and things that may seem a little bit esoteric or advanced in a way. But nonetheless, once you learn it, you save so much time and energy from the old school ways of going about what people call the law of attraction or The Secret. I remember when I first learned about the movie The Secret, my mom shared it with me. I was much younger, and it planted a seed. I was probably 18 years old. How old was I in 2006? Because I know the movie came out in 2006. So, yeah, something like that. And what happened is when I watched this movie, there was something inside of me that clicked. And it felt like it resonated, but it was before my spiritual awakening. And it was something I resisted even watching at the beginning. I was just hanging out with friends. We were playing poker. And then my mom was like, hey, you got to watch it. So I come into her room and I start watching it. And it sucked me in. 5 minutes in, I just wanted to keep watching it. There was something about it that really did resonate. And that started and planted a seed for me. And then years later, I worked a 9-to-5 sales commission job at Nordstrom's and women's shoes. And I started to apply the law of attraction. I started to, because every day that we went in, we started at zero. And we only got paid 10% commission on whatever we sold. And what I did is every day I'd go in, I would notice my energy, the kind of intentions I had, the goals that I have, and I would see the kind of result that I would get from that. And from that, I was able to really look at the energy dynamics of the law of attraction in my own life. And even beyond that, then obviously I went from working that 9-to-5 job to doing what I love full time. And there were a lot of things I learned along the way. And what I want to do in this episode is I want to share with you the top insights that I've had, and also the advanced manifestation practices and principles that I think have transformed my life more than anything else. So, first off, when we talk about this, let me kind of just back up and share with you my journey of the law of attraction. So, like I said, I listened to The Secret back in 2006. It was before my spiritual awakening, but nonetheless, it was something I became something that really resonated with me. And at the time, I was working at Nordstrom's and women's shoes when I really started to apply it. So it's like a retail sales job. You get paid a commission on what you sold, once you sell every day. And what I liked about that is I can kind of control my paychecks in a way. The energy that I put in would be what I got out. And if I was willing to learn more or work harder, then I would make more money. And I liked having that control. I didn't really like having the idea of going to a 9-to-5 job where you only have a certain amount of money you can make. So what I did is I started really practicing it. I remember I would watch, there was a couple of videos by Dr. Wayne Dyer. I think he has them, I think they're called The Power of Intention. And when I was it called The Power of Intention? Yeah, something like The Power of Intention. There were talks on YouTube. And I would go to this place called the E-Bar at Nordstrom's, which is it's like their little coffee shop. And I would sit there and I would watch and listen to YouTube videos on my phone of Dr. Wayne Dyer. And there was just something that really resonated with me and something that began to open up different levels to me. And at that time as well, I was really learning about the power of the mind because I was getting out of using what is called Adderall. So Adderall is the prescription drug that they give to kids or to people that have what is called ADHD. So I, from 7 to 16 years old, many of you know the story, but I didn't have much freedom in my life. I had an ex-stepmom in my life who was very emotionally and mentally controlling and abusive. So after 17 came around, my brother and I had freedom, and our personalities began to came out. We had all this pent up energy from not being allowed to have friends, not being allowed to watch TV, not being allowed to eat the kind of food that we want, having to earn to go to school activities, normally just doing chores all day. All of a sudden, we could do cool stuff. So when that happened, I came out of my shell and started to express myself. And it was almost like all that pent up energy for so long wanted to come out. So at that job that I had, that 9-to-5 job selling women's shoes, I was just very loud. I would mess with customers. I would have a lot of fun. Like almost like when you're that controlled for that period of time, you almost feel like you don't have it's almost everything is exciting after that. Almost everything, any negative situation, it's like, well, it could be worse. I could be around this ex-stepmom person, so I'm not there anymore. So I'm actually grateful for where I am. So at the time, I was taking Adderall for ADHD, which is what the doctors prescribed me, which helped because when I would take that at work, I would sell so much shoes. It would like zone me into this mode to where I could just focus. I wouldn't forget shoes and stuff like that. Like helping at people at Nordstrom's, the way that it worked is you could have as many customers as you'd want. Like I could pick up 4 customers at a time and my coworker could be standing over there with no customers. And that would be his fault because he should have picked up the customers. At Barney's New York, where I worked later, if you got a second customer, you had to pass it off to someone. You were only allowed to have one customer at a time, which is very weird for me to get used to. But basically, when I would take Adderall, I became like almost like in the movie Limitless. Now, Adderall, by the way, has crazy harsh side effects. It's literally like legal meth. It's methamphetamine. And it's so bad. It's like, I'm not recommending anyone take it, but when I would take it, it was like the movie Limitless. I would just get into this mode and I'd be able to help customers and I would make so much money. And what happened is I knew I wanted to get off of Adderall because the side effects were you couldn't eat very much, you couldn't sleep very much. And that caused me also to have to go home at night. And what I would do is every night when I get off, I'd go home and I'd smoke a lot of weed because that would balance out not being able to eat or sleep. What are the side effects of weed? You can eat, you can sleep. It's very easy to eat. It's easier to fall asleep. So that was my balance. Adderall during the day, weed at night. And I was like, man, I feel like I'm dependent on these substances. It didn't feel good. So what I did is I ended up being like, okay, I want to get rid of this. I want to let that go. And at the time I was learning about the law of attraction, the power of the mind, the power of beliefs. And I started to let that go. And you want to know how, let me tell you about the peak. The peak was, I would go to work every day. I'd go get 4 shots of espresso because when I would drink espresso, it would calm my energy down. I would literally be like super solid at 4 shots of espresso. And what I would do is I'd do 4 shots of espresso. Then I would also have had my Adderall. Then I'd be going into work. I'd be selling. I'd be making so much money. And then I'd go to my break. I wouldn't really be that hungry. So I'd be watching Dr. Wayne Dyer videos. And then eventually, though, after months of doing this, I'm like, this cannot be good on my body. I'd actually have this weird thing that would happen. There was this one time I was helping a customer, and my hands started twitching. And she goes, this customer goes, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. I was like, this is so weird. I was looking at my hand, and it was like doing this weird twitch thing that I couldn't stop. And I knew it was my nerves or adrenals. I have no idea what it was. But in that moment, I decided, okay, I have to stop taking this Adderall. And even to this day, by the way, I do not drink caffeine. Not that that makes me better than anybody. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do any pharmaceutical at all. The only supplements I use is what you've heard me talk about on this podcast many times, which is Organifi. And that's what I take in the morning is Organifi greens. And what this is just a little powdered juice that I put into water, and then I drink that. That gives me energy. There's zero crash because when I used to take coffee, even though I was calm, I would still crash, feel lower energies after it. Or at my peak, I also drink a lot of very like green tea with matcha in it. That was even at Nordstrom's. And I would drink that during the holiday season because we'd be so busy. We'd literally be working like 50-something, 60 hours a week and running around like selling shoes. It was so much work. And I'd take that, and that's how I would focus. But then eventually I got off of that. Now all I take is Organifi greens in the morning with a little bit of water, and that gives me energy throughout the day. It's the way I break my fast too because it's actually good on the stomach, and there's zero crash. And I use Organifi I use all their products. Many of you know that. I talk about sponsorships on the podcast all the time, but Organifi, they have the protein as well that I use almost twice a day. I make a protein ice cream out of it, which is super simple to make. So it's Organifi protein, Organifi green. There's also Organifi gold that I drink at night. Those are the 3 that I use. They're all very healthy. They're low in calories. Most of them have almost no sugar, and they're super healthy. And if you didn't know, you can go to Organifi.com/Aaron to get 15% off. That's Organifi.com/AARON. And you can get 15% off of Organifi. Get the green, the protein. The chocolate is the best one, in my opinion. I like chocolate better than vanilla. And then also the chocolate gold. Those are like my 3 favorite. Anyways, kind of a side note here, but it went in perfectly with what I was talking about. I realized I wanted to get off Adderall, and I wanted to focus more on my own energy and not need it. So one thing that I did is I started realizing and started becoming aware of my own belief systems. And I realized that part of my identity, one of the biggest things that changed my life, was when I looked at my own identity. So the way I used to see myself when I went in at Nordstrom's is every single day there was a chart in the back of the stock room of the top salespeople from the day before. And there was always 1 or 2 people that were at the top. This guy named Tony, who's a top salesperson, and then this one other guy. And then I was always in the middle. And I wasn't bad, like I wasn't towards the bottom, but I wasn't towards the top. Now, I bet you could have looked at who was consistently where on this page, and you could have saw people's self-image of what they thought they were worthy of selling, because there was a consistency there. The person that was at the top probably saw himself as a top salesperson. The person at the bottom probably saw themselves as always trying to get by. And the people at the bottom that were consistently at the bottom, they normally had to like fear for their job, because the way that it works is you have to stay within a certain number range of the average of the department in order for you to keep your job. Otherwise you get written up, and then you can end up getting let go. And I saw some people get let go because of that. But the people that were at the bottom, guess what? They had a self-image that was not as good as not as they didn't see themselves as high or as good as salespeople. That was part of their self-image. When I was learning from Dr. Wayne Dyer, Power of Intention, there were some other videos I started to watch on self-image. So what I did is I literally went into that job, or I went in one day, and I started to see myself as a top salesperson. And not only that, I started to act as a top salesperson. I started to realize how there was this kind of underlying notion now that I look back. How I do one thing is how I do everything. So I'd get into this flow to where when I would help people, I would just do it 100% focused on the one customer I was helping. Even if I was helping 2 or 3 customers, when I was talking to them, I was only talking to them, and I would just focus on giving it my best and like really helping them, really adding value. And what happened is, over the course of a couple days of doing this, I literally started to become at the top of the list consistently, because I started to see myself at the top of that list. So that was interesting. As I started to do that, that changed so much. So self-image. The question I have for you is, how do you see yourself? Not only in work, career, how do you see yourself in relationships with other people? What is your self-image? What is your story also? What is your story, which means your beliefs about love? What is your beliefs about money? What is your beliefs about success? Because these beliefs most likely are on autopilot, and they're keeping you in the same place. They're either keeping you at the top of the list, at the bottom of the list, in the middle of the list. I was mediocre until I realized that. Then I became much more. And you could change that at any moment. So this was part of the journey that I learned. And even as I started and eventually I quit at Nordstrom's, then got hired at Barney's, New York. I went on a 6-month hiatus where I just went through a spiritual awakening. I was like, I don't want a job. And I just was like studying stuff. I lived at my mom's, so I was like able to kind of do that for a while, and I was just really going inwards. And then eventually I was like, okay, I got to get a job. Applied at Barney's, got the job like the next day, literally. And what ended up happening is eventually I used that same process to go full-time on YouTube. I started to see myself as a full-time YouTuber, and I started to be a full-time YouTuber. I started to make daily videos, regardless of what the outer circumstance looks like. I made daily videos with the intention of adding value. And over time, it began to compound. And things started to grow. And I got better at being on video. This consistency creates more dialing in. So those aren't even that wasn't even the esoteric. That was just, let me see what. Okay, so the first advanced manifestation principle that has changed my life is one that you don't hear of very often. But what it is it is called, and you've heard me talk about it before, but it's not talked about often in the mainstream at least. It's called importance. Importance. Anything we make very important, we create resistance around. So the thing with importance is, I learned about this from a book that I used to read, and I realized that in life, and even in that job that I used to have, anytime I put a customer on a pedestal, anytime I was dating someone and I put them on a pedestal, from doing that, it would mess up the energy dynamics. Anything you make very important, you create resistance around. When you create resistance around this thing, you literally block it from coming into your life. It's funny, even when I was first starting to grow on YouTube, there'd be this huge spike, this huge growth. The more that I would focus on it, the more I'd make it very important that I grow, very important that things happen, I'd create resistance. And then it's almost like as a reflection in life, those things would slow down. But if I'd say, okay, I'm butchering this up vibrationally, I'd realize that sometimes. I'm thinking about this thing too much, and I'm trying to control the outcome. What I realized is if I let go, then what would happen is then it would allow the resistance to go away. Now, the other side of this is with importance, anything, and think about it, anything you've made very, very important, you've created resistance around and you've blocked. Think of times in your life when you made someone else more important than you. When you made a goal really, really important. Imagine when you go into a business meeting, you're like, I have to close this deal. If I don't close this deal, then oh my gosh, all this crazy stuff's going to happen. When you go in, you're going to have this resistant energy. The person's going to feel that on you. You're setting up the dynamics to where you feel like you're less than them. And they can feel that. People feel what you feel about you. Let me say that one more time. People can feel what you feel about you. And if you feel that someone else is more important than you, then they're going to feel that inferior emotion coming off of you. Speaking about pressure, I had a ex-girlfriend who worked at what is it called? Wyndham. It was like some timeshare place. And she was like a marketer there. And the way that they would manage them is like if they did not make their numbers, like every customer they helped, if they didn't sell them on going to some timeshare thing, then they would get like in trouble or written up or something like that. That's how cutthroat it was. And it would create so much pressure that some people would actually do well, like they worked well under that pressure, but a lot of people, there's so much resistance. The people that worked well are probably the people that didn't make it very important, even though they had management breathing down their back. Like if you don't close this person on coming to this, giving this free gift so that they come to this timeshare meeting, then you're going to get fired or something like that. So what she ended up doing is it was just very obvious that it was a very resistant place to work, but also just think about importance there, putting things on a pedestal, making things very important. So what it is also saying with the whole importance thing is it is saying that my self-image, that's why I talked about self-image a little bit ago, my self-image is not linked up to the ideal version of myself, of my ideal version. So for example, you put someone else on a pedestal. You're like, this person's a 10 out of 10, would recommend. What you do is when you're around them, you feel kind of anxious, like, oh, I hope everything goes well. I hope they like me. But then what happens is it's saying my self-image, it is not natural for me to talk to this kind of person. It's not natural. They are either better than me or whatever. Now, the goal isn't that you become better than them. The goal is that you see everything as neutral. The goal is that no one is better or worse than anybody else, but that you have your own worth. You are worthy. And as you realize your own sense of worthiness, people feel that off of you. Remember? What do people feel? People feel what you feel about you. So if you link up your self-image and you see it as natural for people to be attracted to you, then guess what? You're not going to clam up so much when you talk to them. If you see it as natural for you to close those big business deals, then guess what? It's going to be natural for you. It's not going to be this huge like, oh my gosh, do I sign the paper here? Oh my God, I can't believe you're signing this paper. Oh my goodness. And then you repel them. Instead of repelling them, they're like, oh, this is natural. You make it natural for your self-image. It is natural for me to make daily videos on YouTube. And people used to always ask me when I first was on YouTube and other creators, they were like, how do you do that? How do you make videos every single day on YouTube? Well, it wasn't actually hard. And it isn't hard. If I chose to go back to daily videos, it just becomes a part of my self-image. Just not now my self-image and my identity is changing to where I'm not just a YouTuber, I'm also focused on other stuff. So if you make it a part of your identity and you don't make something more important than you, you're not creating resistance around it, and it becomes natural. When we make something more important, what we are vibrationally saying is this is not natural for me to experience this. If you put someone else on a pedestal and it's very important that things go well with them, what you're saying is you are better than me. My self-image is not linked up with it for it to be natural for me to talk to you. But instead what you do is you link up your self-image and you decrease importance by letting go of importance, by letting go of things being very, very important. And what you end up focusing on is more so yourself, your own energy. You focus on how you see yourself showing up in the world in the way you prefer. So one of the first esoteric principles that took me 8 years to learn is this whole importance thing. It's not something that's very often talked about. However, that leads me into the second one, which is all about chasing, which is kind of similar to when we're chasing something, we're making it more important, but not just that. When we chase something, this is something that's profoundly changed my life. If I'm here and my goal is here, and I'm chasing this goal, I'm saying that the happiness this goal will bring me, the satisfaction this goal will bring me, is outside of myself. And that if I get this thing, then I'll feel happy. And anything you chase, you imply that thing is running away. If you chase a person, you're implying they're energetically running away. I used to work with this lady, and she told she was talking to me because when you work at these sales commission jobs, by the way, a lot of it you're just standing around talking to each other. And there was this guy at one of our friends. He was dating this one chick on the third floor or something like that. And she's like, do you notice that everyone he dates, and anytime he's chasing someone, it means that the other person is running? Think about that. It's almost like if you chase money, you're implying that the money is running away from you because you're chasing it. And what happens if you have a dog and you start chasing the dog? The dog will start running because it thinks you're trying to play with it. And the same way, money is the same way. If you chase money, you are vibrationally implying money's running away from you, which means that your relationship with money is that you believe it's either hard to make, you believe it is not natural for you to have it, and that belief is causing you to either block it or attract it into your life, depending on what your belief about money and your relationship about money is. So realize, though, that money, even of itself, if you're chasing money, realize money is a symbol. Money has no built-in meaning other than the meaning we give it, but it is a symbol of energy exchange on the planet. When people go for the outer thing, it is like trying to treat the symptoms and not the cause. What causes money? That's the symptom. The money is the symptom of the value and what you can provide in the world. Instead of focusing on the money, focus on the value. When you focus on the value, when I started making YouTube videos, I was not focused on the subscribers. I was focused on the value that I could provide to people listening to the videos about how to make changes in life, about understanding these metaphysical principles, how making spirituality practical. I focused on adding as much value as I could, and as I focused on the value, the subscribers came. As I focused on helping people, abundance came. And one of the biggest problems I see is that people chase money, people chase love, people chase these things not knowing that they may have a belief, a relationship with it that implies that that thing is running away from them. If you are chasing a person in your life, you are implying that that person is running, and you most likely have a belief that you are not worthy of it, or that it naturally is just running away from you. So what this does is we are here, we're chasing this thing over here. Instead of chasing that thing, it's focusing on the inside of, how do I relate to this thing? How do I relate to this thing? And what we do is, as we become aware, sorry if the microphone sounds kind of weird, I'm trying to adjust it. As we focus on our relationship, we will then see that the outer reality begins to change. I've changed my beliefs around money and abundance. I used to have this belief that, I'm a spiritual person sharing these ideas online. I shouldn't want money that's evil, that's low vibrational. But then I realized it's energy exchange. And then also that the abundance that I make, I can reinvest that into my business, into my mission to help more and more people. I can then hire people. Then I have more time to do what I actually love. It's reframing the meaning, changing it within ourselves. A lot of spiritual people have negative beliefs about money because they believe that money is this 3D thing. For a period of time on our planet, money will be around. So we might as well embrace it and focus on the energy exchange. Focus on the value we're putting out in the world rather than, because if we feel guilty or have negative emotions about it, we think it's bad, then guess what? If it's bad and we want to be good, then we're going to repel it. And then we're going to wonder why we still have to have a 9-to-5 job that we don't like. Or we don't have enough to just really let loose and go on vacation, spend quality time with family, or to grow our mission even more, or whatever it is. So don't chase. Feel the emotions of also having what you want now. This thing over here that you're chasing, it's going to give you a certain emotion. The money gives you freedom or security, or whatever money means to you. Love gives you connection, compassion, love, whatever that feeling is that a relationship means to you. For some people, it could be security. It could be different emotions. But what are you craving? Give yourself those emotions and find ways of feeling those emotions now. You can give yourself permission to feel those emotions. Even before we hit certain goals on YouTube, I would just feel the emotions of already having that. I'm already worthy. I don't need these things in the external world in order to feel this way. And the irony, the paradox is that by feeling those emotions now, guess what happens? Those things come quicker than ever because you are then in vibrational resonance to it. If you let go of the wanting of something, you can then just have it. And you say, I want, you say, I lack. I want money. Why would you want money? Because you don't have it. Therefore, you want it. And the thing that you can begin to do is you can begin to give yourself permission to just have and be. Don't even just have, be. Be abundant. Be who you came here to be. And by being that way, guess what? You're going to have more magnetic energy. You're going to notice that you just carry yourself differently. So, second one is don't chase it. Go within yourself, change your beliefs and your stories about these things. You'll see that things begin to change. And the last one has to do with understanding that all truths are true. So the third manifestation principle that has changed my life over the last 8 years is that all truths are true. Now, what this means is that anything you believe to be true is being reflected back to you. Now, my beliefs have changed as I've even gone through the manifestation process. Back in the day, something that I needed to hear that actually helped me was to take action. I was working that 9-to-5 job. I was selling women's shoes at Barney's, New York at this point. And I knew I wanted to be on YouTube. I knew I wanted to share ideas, but I didn't know what to do. And the way that I thought about manifestation was I was like, I'm just going to think about it. I'm going to think about it, but I didn't get much results. I'd have cool little synchronicities happen. Met Jack Canfield, helped Tony Robbins' wife, Sage Robbins, stuff like that, like things that were in alignment with things I wanted to do, meet these people, right? But nothing really came of it. Then I had this epiphany that I almost imagined my future self, what my future self would tell me. And basically the message I got was to make a video every single day on YouTube for the next year and your life will transform. So I said, okay, that's what I'll do. So I started making daily videos. When I started making daily videos, my self-image started to change. I started to see myself as what you could call a hard worker, and I started to realize that physical action really got me great results when it's aligned with passion. So physical action, passion. As I began doing and being in that mode, it served me. I went from working that 9-to-5 job to then started growing within a month. I went from 3,500 subscribers on YouTube to almost like 20-something thousand. And then it just kept growing. And guess what? Within 6 months, quit that 9-to-5 job, went full time. But then I realized I had to develop a belief system that meant I had to work hard to be successful. And even 2.5 years after making daily videos on YouTube, I literally made daily videos on YouTube after 1 year, I was already at 200,000 subs. I don't think I had to keep making daily videos the way that I did, but I guess it served me for a period of time. But then I developed a belief system that said that I have to work hard to be successful. I became aware of this belief system while I was at a life transformation spa in Costa Rica, and I did ayahuasca, which is plant medicine. Something I tell myself I never do. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do caffeine, I would never do that kind of stuff. I ended up doing ayahuasca. And when I did it, guess what happened? I realized that I became aware of my shadow and that I believed things had to be hard. I believed that I had to work hard to be successful. And I wasn't really enjoying life that much. I was always focused on the future. I was always focused on achieving more. It was almost never enough. So what I eventually had to do is I had to let go of that belief that I had to work hard. And I started working smart. I started hiring people. I was so bent up on like doing my own YouTube editing that it took me like 1.5 years before I even hired an editor. I was like, no, I have to do it. It has to be and I had the most basic, simple editing process ever, but I was like, I have to do it. It's special to me. It was so ridiculous now that I look back at it. But I had to let go of my control. I also had to let go of my belief that I had to work hard to be successful so that I could then allow more abundance and more also just life to be easier and more enjoyable. And as I began to change my perception on it like that, guess what? Things did become much easier. Letting go of those beliefs. And it's not just beliefs, it's also my self-image. Even now, as I move into not just doing YouTube videos. Now I do 3 videos a week on YouTube. I do the podcast. The podcast is probably my main focus right now. But my focus is also growing something that I'm working on right now. And it's changed my self-image. But sometimes it's scary to let go of one's self-image. To let go of just being the daily YouTuber was kind of scary. Before that, it was kind of scary to let go of that job because it brought stability. Even though I knew I didn't really like it, it brought stability. Letting go of hard work was scary. Believing I had to work hard because I was taking a lot of action. I was like, if I stop taking so much action, am I going to lose this momentum? That was scary to me. But anytime that I had those feelings and I actually trusted the universe and realized that this is also about alignment, enjoying life as well. I enjoyed life when I wasn't working so freaking hard all the time and trying to get somewhere else in the future. So what I've learned is that even though there's a certain container that you may take on for a period of time, you'll eventually let that go. Even if you're like, okay, I developed this story, this identity that I can make $150K a year, and you're making like $70K a year. Guess what? $150K a year is going to be really cool. It's going to be awesome. But eventually, you're going to even move beyond that. And when you do, you're going to see that that was a limitation. Me having that hard work belief mentality, it served me. But then I started to think that because it served me for a year or two, it's going to serve me forever. Rather than understanding that I could then work smarter and more aligned and enjoy the process more. Doesn't mean I don't work at all. I love what I do. If you love what you do, you won't mind working. But it means that the way and you relate to it has changed. So these are the 3 things. Don't chase. Feel it now. Decrease importance, link up your self-image. Almost all 3 of these, by the way, have to do with self-image in some way. But that's been one of the most powerful manifestation principle that has changed my own life. If you didn't know, this is there is a second YouTube channel that has videos of this. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or on the podcast somewhere, Aaron Doughty Podcast is the name of it right now. And then also, if you're on the YouTube channel, there is easy to listen to episodes on the Aaron Doughty Podcast on iTunes and Spotify. It's very easy just to listen to the episodes, and you don't always have to have your phone open on video like you do on YouTube. You could just listen to it while you're at the gym, working out, in the car. It's very easy, so I just want to let you guys know about that. If you like this episode, can you let me know? Can you let me know on Instagram? Let me know if you want more episodes on stuff like this, where I just kind of like share the different principles that took me a long time to learn, kind of inside my experience with these things. Let me know. Share this podcast episode on iTunes or share this podcast on Instagram. If you can share it in stories and tag me. I'll be reposting. Other than that, I hope all of you enjoyed this episode, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Peace, much love, and namaste.